Coming up on today's show, we are going to address the biggest NFL story out there right now outside of the draft, and that is Trey Lance might be on the move. So could it make sense for Denver to pursue the former third overall pick? Now, before we get into all of that, our Chiefs Report host, Harrison Graham, was talking on his channel the other day, and he had this to say about the Broncos. On the Chiefs' 2023 record. Probably another 14-win season when you take into account cupcake games, like the Broncos twice a season. That pisses you off a little bit. That rubs you the wrong way. That Chiefs fans are already saying, we got 2 guaranteed wins against Denver because they're cupcake FCS games. Then let's beat the Chiefs Report in subs this month, and hopefully we can bring that into the season and end the drought against KC. What's going on, everyone? Let's talk about Trey Lance. Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown. Matthew Peterson here, trying out a new microphone today. Let me know if you guys like it. But a new report came out that Trey Lance could be traded. So, naturally, when you are a team that doesn't have a surefire thing at quarterback for years to come, your ears are going to perk up a little bit, and you're going to wonder, could my team be interested in Trey Lance? Insert Denver. Now, Ian Rapoport tweeting out this morning, sources. The 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking into a potential trade for former number 3 pick quarterback Trey Lance. The conversations have been the result of San Francisco fielding the calls, not making them, with teams aware that Brock Purdy is likely the future starter. Now, if I had to take a stab at which teams could be interested in Trey Lance, here are 5 possible destinations I kind of just came up with off the cuff. Tennessee makes a lot of sense because they don't have a long-term answer at quarterback, plus their new GM came over from San Francisco. Then there is Denver, which is sort of in no man's land at quarterback, it feels like. Houston, if they don't love any of the quarterbacks in this draft class, maybe they trade for Trey Lance. Their new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, was with the 49ers, and then they go like Will Anderson at number 2. Indianapolis, they are always in on trading or signing a quarterback, it seems like, since Andrew Luck left. So never rule out Jim Irsay to just pick up the phone and get a deal done without even consulting his front office. And then Minnesota, there's been a ton of buzz there. He is a native of the land of 1,000 lakes or 10,000 lakes. So the Vikings maybe think, you know what, Kirk Cousins, 1 year left on his deal. Let's find his replacement right now. Now, some background information on Trey Lance. Here are his career stats. He has been very unproven because he's only started in 4 games. He got hurt in week 2 of this past season, a fractured ankle, 797 career passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 235 yards on the ground. He is a very raw product. I mean, look at some more information on Trey Lance here. He has played in a total of 27 organized contact football games since the start of 2018. In that same 5-year stretch, his team, whether he was hurt or COVID impacted it, was going to play around 70 games. So he has missed a ton of time. He's also still extremely young. He turns 23 years old next month. So we're talking about a 22-year-old that was a 3rd-round pick not long ago and has not played a ton of football over the last 5 seasons. He still has up to 3 years left on his rookie contract if his 5th-year option gets exercised. Now, the big question that we have to ask ourselves is, what does it cost to get Trey Lance? I think that is the first question you really got to diagnose before you pursue whether or not Trey Lance is a good football player. Because I'm not a big Trey Lance believer or stan. I don't think Trey Lance is going to be a phenomenal quarterback. But the key word there was think. So if you can get Trey Lance for a 7th-round pick, well, of course that's worth it then, right? That's the question here is, at what point do you go, you know what, it's not worth giving up that draft pick, but I'd give up a 5th or a 4th or a 3rd, whatever that is, well, then that's absolutely worth throwing a dart at the board and seeing if Trey Lance could be that number 3 overall pick and be a quarterback for your team for a decade plus. So if I had to speculate on what San Francisco is looking for Trey Lance, they're not going to get a 1st-round pick for him because 2 years in, we just haven't seen 1st-round pick-worthy tape so far. I don't think you're going to get a 2nd, but maybe it's 2/3. Maybe it's a 3rd-round pick this year and a future 3rd-round pick. At which point we have to have the debate. Ignore if Trey Lance is going to be a bona fide superstar quarterback. Is 2 third-round picks worth the risk? That is really what I'm asking here. So would you do this trade? Would you move on from 2 third-round picks to risk seeing if Trey Lance is the guy, right? Because if you don't think he's the guy, well, that's okay, but I'm sure you'd give up a 7th-round pick to find out if he was. So what I want to know is, would you give up 2/3 to figure out if Trey Lance could be a future superstar quarterback some thought he was going to be when he was picked 3rd overall by San Francisco? Now, as a non-Trey Lance guy, which I say this from a background of I don't think Trey Lance is going to be this awesome superstar quarterback. I was never a huge fan of him coming out of college anyway. I can still see the value in a team going, hey, it's worth giving up a 3rd-round pick because the quarterback position is just that important. So if it works out, great. We got the quarterback for the future, and all it cost us was a 3rd-round pick. And if it doesn't work out, boo-hoo. All it cost us was a 3rd-round pick. That 3rd round is really the definition of half glass full, half glass empty. You don't want to burn 3rd-round picks. You don't want to light them on fire just for doing it. But at the same time, you can also spin zone and go, well, it's just a 3rd-round pick. We're not talking about a 1st or a 2nd here. So Sean Payton, in my opinion, will explore all quarterback options. He was hired by the Broncos first and foremost to salvage the Russell Wilson trade and contract. But they are more invested in Sean Payton long-term than Russell Wilson. So if Sean Payton sees an avenue to maybe not upgrade at quarterback this year, but start planning for the future if Russell Wilson does not rebound next year, you better believe he will pick up the phone and make some calls. Now, Wilson's dead cap hit, meaning money that Denver has to pay him whether he's on the roster or not, is going to be really high for a while still. There's no moving on from him for this year. We know that. That's not even a question. 2024, still $85 million. Like, that's a lot of cheddar to give up and ask someone to, hey, please don't come play for us anymore, and we're going to pay you $85 million to do so. He might be a backup if things don't go well in 2023, and Sean Payton goes, I don't want to be tied to this. This wasn't my trade. I'm bringing in my own quarterback. 2025, nearly $50 million. I could see Denver stomaching that and eating it. So the point I want to make here is Sean Payton may very well be already making some steps to start preparing for 2024 if things don't go well for Russell Wilson in 2023. Plan A, we should all be rooting for, is Russell Wilson returns to his superstar status from Seattle, and 2022 was just a year we all forget about, and we just blame Nathaniel Hackett and act like it never happened. So if Sean Payton doesn't want to just completely bank on that happening, and he had a crush on Trey Lance coming out, but he was in New Orleans, they had Drew Brees, it didn't really make sense for them, maybe he views this as an opportunity to get a quarterback who he loved coming out of college and thinks, wow, it used to cost me a 3rd-round pick to get a guy like Trey Lance. You're telling me we can get him for 2/3? That's an absolute steal, George. Make it happen. So these are very real conversations that could be taking place in Dove Valley right now as the Broncos are maybe already thinking for the future a tad. Now, another possibility for 2024 is Jarrett Stidham. Denver signed him to a pretty nice fat contract to be a backup quarterback, if we're being honest. For a guy that only has 2 career starts, there's a decent investment that went into Stidham. And Sean Payton spoke very highly of him at the NFL owners meeting. So just that signing alone tells me he's thinking at least a little bit for backup plans. And if he thinks Trey Lance could have some future, maybe he wants to bring in some more quarterbacks. And if things don't go well with Russ in 2023, don't be shocked if the leash is short and they want to see what they have in a guy like Trey Lance coming off the bench. So be real with me for a moment here. Are you a believer in Trey Lance? Do you think Trey Lance is going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback? Not Tyler Huntley Pro Bowl, like a real Pro Bowl quarterback. Sorry, Tyler. Y for yes or N for no. Now, before we get on out of here, I want to talk about what a former quarterback, and a pretty notable one too, had to say about Russell Wilson that I think might, rejuvenate some of the love lost surrounding number 3. But first things first, the NFL draft, ladies and gentlemen, is just over a week away. So make sure you get the Denver Broncos 2023 NFL draft hats by using our exclusive link, chatsports.com/Broncos Draft. It's in the comments and the description of today's video. So getting back to what one former top quarterback pick, Robert Griffin III, had to say on Russell Wilson in an interview with Troy Rank. With Russell, I think he can bounce back. I think he's going to pay more attention to the injuries that happened last season, and he will be healthier. And cutting down on the sacks, part of that is the play calls. Payton understands that. He's going to be hard on Russ. A lot of people are saying Russ doesn't have it anymore. Sean is going to make sure Russ doesn't hold on to the ball too long and put his line in bad situations. Russell Wilson last season, to painfully remind everyone, did not have a season to remember, and I am full on blame the guy that used to be the head coach for Denver to try and salvage Russell Wilson moving forward, at least mentally. RG3 also added this on Russell Wilson. With Russell, he's the main piece in all of this. At running back, you have pieces. At receiver, you have pieces. The offensive line is improved. What are you missing? A coach who can get through to the quarterback. What RG3 is basically saying here, and I'm going to echo it as well, is blame everything on Hackett, right? Make him the fall guy and pray and hope that it was 110% Hackett's fault and Sean Payton can step in and get Russell Wilson back to where he was in Seattle, right? We're just going to pin everything on Nathaniel. I'm sorry, Nate. Great guy. Really cool. Not an NFL head coach. And that, in my opinion, is the best mental way to buy in on 2023 being a success. When people say, what do you expect out of Denver next year with Sean Payton? Oh, complete 180. Hackett's gone. That was the only issue. We have to wait and see if that's true. The last two games did serve a decent body of evidence that might be more true than not, but that is the mental gymnastics you and I have to do to psych ourselves up for 2023, having any traits of success around it based on how they played last year. So predict it for me. What will the Broncos 2023 record be? Give me your best predictions. I'm going to give you mine in just a moment, but let me know what you're thinking down below. I'm sticking by my 9-8 prediction. This team won 5 games last season. They had 9 one-score losses. You're telling me Sean Payton, a much better coach than Hackett? I mean, not even the same category as Nathaniel. Can't go from 5 wins and take 9 one-score losses, cut them in half, and go 9-8 just like that? I don't think that's out of the question, especially with the improvements they made at the offensive line. 9 wins definitely feels like it's in the grasp. Plus, they finished dead last in the AFC West, so they'll get a last-place schedule, which could serve them some easier wins. So with that being said, let's give some shout-outs before we get on out of here. Some Twitter shout-outs to those of you who shared our previous Broncos Breakdown on Twitter. Salvi Nation, ZSPN, Sebastian Martinez. Shout-out to all of you guys. Thank you so much for helping grow the channel.